2023, technology is still not there really with us, and having hybrid meetings is more a dream than a reality. But we're getting there. So I've been asked to start just brainstorming and starting the session, and then hopefully the presentation will pop up and the virtual participants will pop in. So, hello, those of you who were here this morning, this is the future I was talking about, that we're going to hear about. We're not going to talk about reduction of emissions. We're going to talk about delivering solutions for human needs. So this is what we call the next generation of solution providers among companies. As I discussed this morning, most investors, policymakers, media, they are asking companies, how much do you reduce emissions? That is not a very relevant question. The relevant question is, how do you provide for what society needs in a sustainable way? Fantastic. And we have all the heroes. And I will introduce them as we had, and now they're gone. Oh, Masamba. And yeah, but before I start, if Masamba comes here, maybe can you mic yourself up first, and then I'll hand over to you, Tjus. But is it on? Because what we did here was try to find some good examples from a very wide spectrum of companies. So we have fashion shoe companies, outdoor companies. We have more natural resource-based steel and forestry. And also, of course, the big one in the room, energy companies. But all of these companies for us is not how much they reduce emissions, but how much they help society becomes better. How much, and also that we, with all of them, had really good discussions about, it's not about the global north. It's not about the people who pollute today. It's also allowing the people that today are poor to live flourishing lives. So we have this filter about 11 billion flourishing lives. That's what we should aim for. So that's what we've discussed with these companies, and I think that's the conversation we would like to become mainstream. Not how much you reduce emissions, but what you give to society. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Masamba, who's been the leader within UNCCC to allow this new expanded perspective to flourish.
Thank you, Dennis, and good afternoon to all of you, and good afternoon to our co-panelists. Very pleased to be in this very important discussion, focusing on how can we provide flourishing life to 11 billion people, and doing it in a way that is aligned with the climate goal. It's very important to insist on that because most of the time, the challenge that we are facing is presented as a decarbonization challenge. That's not the right narrative, because it's not just about decarbonizing our economy, because in this case, a country like mine with a very small level of emission would not be concerned about mitigation. But the challenge is more about how can we provide flourishing life to 11 billion people, meaning nobody should be left behind. It has to be inclusive, but doing it in a way that is aligned with a healthy planet. It means aligned with the climate goal, but it means also contributing to enhancing biodiversity, contributing to regeneration of land, and staying within the planetary boundary. And to be able to do that, the approach that the Global Innovation Hub is taking is to focus on the core human needs. Our focus is not how do we use innovation to decarbonize the different sector. The question that we are asking is, how can we leverage innovation to address the core human needs of the many people, but doing it in a way that is clean and aligned with a healthy planet. So it means that the purpose is not decarbonizing, but the purpose is satisfying the needs and providing well-being, flourishing life. So the healthy planet is a constraint. We have to do it in a way that is aligned with a healthy planet. And what is really interesting in this approach is by doing so, not only you focus on the people, but it enables also to expand the space for innovation. Because there are many types of climate and sustainability solutions that will not be identified if you just focus at the sectoral level. But if you go back to the core human need and try to use innovation for their satisfaction while being aligned with a healthy planet, these type of innovation that are among the most transformative one will be identifiable. So, number one, you change your focus. You focus on the many people and the planet, but important also, you expand your space for innovation.
Thank you, Masamba. And this is truly revolutionary. And I just want to share a few slides before I give the door, open up the floor for the speakers. And to really focus on, last year we became 8 billion people. And most likely we're going to keep on getting more people, and we'll probably peak around 11 billion. So that's what we said. In a couple of decades, that's how we should prepare for. That 11 billion people live flourishing lives on a planet in balance. So as Masamba also said, this is not just about carbon. Biodiversity collapse might be an equal or even larger threat to human civilization. But we forgot that because we are only managing to see one threat at a time. And then COVID comes up or something else. But there's multiple challenges we need to face at the same time. And that's what we talked about, this expanded climate innovation agenda. And these companies also that we invited them because they've done their homework. They've done amazing work to reduce their emissions. But now they're moving and really looking towards how are they going to use these products. That steel, that forest product, those shoes, that energy being produced. That is the important question. And you've probably seen these things, and that's what we see in this. The thing that gets us stuck is that we look at emissions, and then we say we measure those, and then we ask everyone who have those emissions to reduce emissions. But that is what we call the fossil-free typewriter. So they're basically saying we have this society, and now we're just reducing emissions in it. But we don't live in a very good society, and innovation is happening all the time. So instead, we should focus on the human needs and how those are being provided for in sustainable ways. So that just flips the script. But the data today is not here for us. The challenges for companies are not there. The investors are not really asking these questions. Still, World Business Council and others are working to make that happen and change, but it's still not really the mainstream. So that's why these people also require a bit of extra support, because they're stepping forward. They don't need to be here. They're here because they're leaders. And that's where my fear is, that we look at leaders as those who comply and reduce their problems, not those who are leading and developing markets for the future. And for a business, that doesn't make any sense. It makes sense if you want to self-offsetting or something to make you look good, but if you want to help a company transform, it doesn't make any sense. So that's what we want to have that. And that's what we also with Boston Consulting Group said, we need to teach companies that they should do their homework. We call it climate risk innovation. They should look at the problems they have and try to innovate and reduce that. But the focus of most of the company, the leadership, should be on what we call climate solution innovation. Where are things needed in society? How do I make money? Not save money, make money by giving society what it needs. That is the driver. And no one starts a company saying, oh, I want to reduce my emissions. I start a company because I have something to give to society. And we need to tap into that, because that's where the passion and capacity among companies exists. It doesn't exist among compliance. It's good to have compliance, and good companies have good compliance. But the real passion is to give something to society, and that's where we need to tap into. And what we've done now is to develop a framework that we ask companies, where are they? Because they push there and they have compliance people, and most of the companies we've been working with, we actually not been working with the Department of Energy and Climate, but with business development, innovation, sales, because they are the one looking forward and saying, this is what the market is asking for. This is where we can make money. Where the compliance people say, oh, this is the new legislation, this is how we need to deal with that. Important, but not where we want to work with. So that's what we want to say. We call expanded innovation agenda. The old work is still needed, but this is where I think the new exciting things come. Because if you want to sell something sustainable, you also need to look back and make sure that it's produced in a good way. But if you only look how it's produced and use science-based reduction target something, you can kill innovation. Because you say, oh, I'm not reducing any emissions anymore, therefore my work with climate is done. And we've had that. We have companies saying, oh, we have set this target, so our leadership is now saying climate is done. No, but it's not just for us to shift from a fossil machine to an electric machine. We can think about what we sell to the market in new smart ways. Is that climate? Yes, it should be, but today it's not. So with that, I'd like to... So we're launching today these new innovation guides for the outdoor sector, steel, forestry and energy, to see what happens when you move away from product substitution and just make a better version of what you have, to start looking at what society needs. And with that, I'd like to invite the first speaker from the outdoor sector, James, who is the CFO of Icebug. And we had a presentation yesterday, actually, in Munich, virtually, where the outdoor industry is talking about their role as a solution provider. So if we can have James coming in, or...
I'm here, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
But
we don't see you, but we hear you.
Okay, should I go ahead?
Yes, please.
All right, so excited to be with you today. I believe the outdoor sector is uniquely positioned to encourage sustainable lifestyles. But why do I think that? Well, because it addresses this really deep-seated human need for connection with nature and physical activity. While such things as everyday adventures and taking care of nature is in the industry DNA. And we want to be a factor in facilitating that connection every single day. And we want to be a solution provider for a future where 11 billion people can live flourishing lives. But how? Well, for us, it starts with creating gear that empowers people to step outside, no matter the weather. At Icebug, we've broken this task down into 3 main working streams, which are in many ways connected. The first is wardrobes and product, because we want to create products that people want to use a lot and for a variety of different use cases. We want those shoes to have comfort, design, and durability so that people want to use them for a long time. Mm-hmm. Because reducing the carbon footprint, like Dennis said, that's an important task. We spend a lot of time and money on that. But if you're providing the world something that's rarely used, once, maybe a few times, those things should not be decreasing 50% by 2030. We think that those products should not exist at all. Mm-hmm. So for us, making sure products are needed and used, that's key, because we want to be a clear counterweight to fast fashion. And obviously, we can't shop our way out of this climate crisis, so we advocate for something called wardrobe thinking, which Dennis has been instrumental in really guiding us through. And it's about understanding what you truly need, not pushing for the next purchase, but ensuring that each piece of gear has the right fit, quality, and design. And it's not only about reducing waste, it also saves money and space. And our goal is for every sold item to be used, and not just occasionally. This is actually our main business target, amount of yearly uses. So the next part that we really work hard on is called exponential collaborations, which is about making it possible for people to overcome these obstacles of getting outdoors. And the industry that I'm part of has historically been quite exclusive. And these epic pictures of the white man on the mountain has been really prevalent. And we think that this needs to change, and quickly. We need to make outdoors much more inclusive. When we talk about outdoors, we just mean open the door and go out the door. That's outdoors for us. Just an example for myself. I'm born and raised in Sweden, and nature and these things are really, really close by, and it's people go fishing and go into the forest and camp and all these kind of things. But growing up in an immigrant family, these things were not really something that I did. I thought this is something for the white Swedes. But this has changed since I became an adult, and it's given me so much value in my life. And this is something that I think a lot more people could find value in. And we partner with this organization called Hey Främling, who work on exactly this. And the third stream that's instrumental for us is the society stream. And we try to work on how to influence society and perceptions. And the core thought is, if we step outside, we'll find nearby adventures that are closer by than we think. And what if the outdoor sector could help and make this kind of nearby experiences even more appealing? Completely different from all the marketing trying to get us to fly around and chasing kicks. That's a big challenge. And here's a very concrete effort. I hope we could show our new receipt here, but basically it's when you purchase a pair of shoes from us, you get the first traditional part of the receipt, and then it moves on to how do you take care of these products, how do you use them, how can you get local trails and nearby forests, and how can you help protect nature. And this is a call to try to make the local outdoors more attractive. So our ambition is this. We don't want to just sell shoes. We want to deliver on human needs, because we're part of a movement making the outdoors accessible to much more people and to break down any barriers in the way. We want to move away from fast fashion and overconsumption to buying what you really need, using that often and for a long time. In the process, enabling movement, connection to nature, and hopefully adding flourishing life years in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic, James. And this is the reason we started with this is where people live flourishing lives. But with only shoes, you can't do anything. You need steel for through the public transport to get the train up there. You need the forest product to build the buildings that you stay in. And you need energy to push all these things around. But if we start focusing on that, how do we provide for those things? That's where the thing starts getting exciting, instead of saying how many kilo of X, Y, and Z. So from James, I'd like to introduce the oldest friend of this process, Ganesh Das, from Tata Power, who's really been at the forefront of the innovation game. And maybe you can share also Tata Power's goal and vision of bringing 1 billion people out of poverty and live flourishing lives as an energy company that I think is really exciting. So if we can give the floor to Ganesh, who was out there and now I don't see him anymore. Was he disconnected, or are you? He got disconnected. So maybe John, let's go for the forestry now.
Yes, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Good. I just had a couple of very few slides with almost nothing on them, but I'm not sure how it works, whether they just come up, or whether should I share my second screen?
Share screen.
Yeah. I'm not allowed to, but I don't think it's very important. For some reason, I'm not allowed to share. Maybe that's the status I have as a speaker, not an organizer. Well, thank you.
Now it should be possible for you to share.
Yeah, now it is. Yeah. So I just gained in status here very quickly, I think.
You're upgraded, John.
I'm upgraded. That's very nice. Can you see?
Yes, we see.
Yes, good. So a little bit of nature. Thank you for the invitation. I wish I could have been with you physically, because I think one of the big prizes presenting is actually to get to talk to fellow panelists, but even more so the people in the audience. But that's not possible. I will join the COP in a couple of days. I come from Stora Enso. As you can see, I'm not sure if you know who we are. We're a forest company. I'll spend less than 20 seconds on this, but we do own plus 2 million hectares of forest. We source, we altogether represent a production area of 6 million hectares of forest, and then we take that and we make a range of renewable materials applications across buildings, packaging, pulp, paper, and more innovative lignin-based solutions. That's what we do. You can see some of the numbers. Now, I think in the context of this theme for today, and start to focus on solutions, but solutions that are real solutions, that are inclusive enough to be able to take care of the planet and all the people on the planet. I think we represent a special challenge, because we are already a fairly sizable company, and we already have a lot of so-called solutions, or at least products that are better than, the normal alternatives. I came to Stora Enso 3 years ago, and I came out of the will and the desire of the company to add on top of the classical, you could say, sustainability work, which is indeed about governance and controls and reducing the problem that you're causing as a company, which I still think is a valid effort, but actually to add on that an effort to become a real solution provider in the long term. So here's a heading, which is of course a banal quote that you've heard about many times, but it's that flipping around where the push mentality in the company would be, who can help us push more of our products out? That would be asked for policymakers, that would be asked for retailers that are positioning our products, or the fight over shelf space, and so on and so forth. But actually, if you really want to make sure that you innovate enough and in a relevant way, the question is this. The first thing then is to get the right ambition in place. And we opted for the word regenerative, 100% regenerative solutions, so that's products and services. I think, this is our expression of what we discuss here. Regenerative we choose because we really wanted to communicate to the world, but maybe more to ourselves actually, that we are way beyond trying to just minimize the negative impact. We have to restore. We have to restore ecosystems. We have to restore the climate. We also have to restore relationships. So regenerate. It's rebuilding something. So that's it. And it's net positive in all these matrix. It's going beyond reducing the negative. Now, it's tied to products and services. And I think that's maybe seen from the internal, the most important change in this, because normally sustainability work, CSR work is tied to processes. How do we run our processes? Still important, I believe, because there is important stuff in that. Not the least safety of the employees, for example, safety of the communities around. So that's process. But here, it's linked to products, because what we do as companies is that we take, of course, capital, natural capital, deploy people, and then bring something to the world. But is that relevant, what we bring? It's what we bring that's important. So here, the ambition is tied to what we bring, what we give. Now, we are not, I think the previous speaker, James, was highly inspirational for me, because you're just at it. We're not, and I think we have a couple of interesting barriers given who we are, because we have renewable products. Most of our products, they will substitute fossil-based products. It's, in the situation we're in, it's a good proposition, and it's a relevant proposition. Every time we sell something, not 100%, but at least 90%, we improve the state of the world a little bit. So what's our urge to change and not just try to boost that substitution effect? It's even more difficult when you actually have something already that improves the state of matters. Now, but if you then try to future back a little bit, you can also see that the current value chains that we have, the current applications, although better than what we substitute, you can extrapolate them into anything that's relevant with 11 billion people, if all of those people, and they should, will live good lives. So that's a barrier we work with. Then, already being a sizable company, how do we balance this, selling what we have and optimizing that, and then investing in what is essentially a disruptive thought, to start to look at system substitutions, to start to look at disruptive innovations that are servicing the needs that are really there and that can be scaled. It's a challenge that I think startups do not have in the same way, because just get at the relevant point now, whereas we come with a legacy and we come with servicing something that makes sense today. So we're very interested in already collaborating with startups also, because I don't think we will be able to do this kind of transformation alone, because there is a lot of legacy in the industrial processes we already have. I do think, of course, that the realization that we need to go beyond product substitution, that we need to go on our current business model, is the right starting point, and the willingness to do so. But with that, I will hope we have some time for Q&A and debate, because I think we are just really eager to get in contact with inspiration that can help us move from product substitution into systems substitution and human needs. Thank you for the work.
Thank you, John. Is it possible to turn up the volume a little bit for us up here? It's quite hard to hear, at least sitting up here. I don't know how it is for you in the public. Yeah, they also want to turn it up a bit, so we can hear people a bit more clear. Yeah. Thanks. And as John said, this is also, I think, is very interesting, because sometimes people from the forest industry has been just saying, oh, it's all about substitution. We can just sell more. That is equally uninnovative. And then say, oh, so we just substitute everything that is fossil or steel or something else, we just put forest in. No, we'll destroy the world. We don't have any biodiversity left. So that's how we can start combining these things, because we need forest products, we need steel products, we need things to work together. And that's where we need also focusing on these things together. And as John said also, we need to put the startups in the center of this also, because that's where lots of the energy for the new ideas comes. And someone who knows a lot about startups and innovation, Ganesh does. Now I hope you can have the floor. You disappeared for a while. So, one of our great heroes, can you share some insights?
Thank you very much, Ganesh, and good afternoon, good evening to all of you. It's a pleasure to be part of this discussion and pleasure working with Ganesh for so many years. You know, Tata Power is one of the oldest, or perhaps the oldest power company in India. We are about 180 years old. And we dreamed of clean, sustainable power for all. That is a statement our founder had made 108 years back, and it continues to hold that same statement. Even today, it is very true for all of us. While we have, crossed all those years, we stand at something like 14.3 gigawatt as a portfolio, current portfolio, which includes phenomenally high amount of thermal and some, which is close to 9 gigawatt. Then we have got about 3 gigawatt, 4 gigawatt of solar and 1 gigawatt of wind. And we also have a very huge distribution network. We serve directly around 13 million consumers spread across India. And that is the side. And we have got a lot of aspirations. Directly talking about the impact we want to make when it comes to sustainability is, we hope that in the future, by 2030, out of the 30 gigawatt of the target which we have, we hope to have 75% clean energy, and which out of which 25% would be thermal. That is something which we say that very straightforward for us to really look at, and it's very straightforward for us to take it as a target. But that is not where we are stopping, because we are very conscious of the fact that how do we really transfer this journey of innovation and making an impact. Now we heard a very interesting statement made by Ganesh earlier that, essentially, when you focus on a market, essentially how do you really define a market? And eventually all business houses have to have an understanding of that market, which is very important. While we are transiting this journey of sustainability, wherein we are being very conscious of the fact that how do we really generate that so-called profits, it is also very important to see that we create alternate markets as we move forward. So what will be very important for us to really look at is how do we really, while we are transiting from the traditional carbon-based economy to something more cleaner economy, how do we really also create a market as we move forward? Because creation of a market is of extreme importance to really to continue to have the interest of the larger ecosystem, and they invest in technology, innovation, etc. to keep this going. So we consider this as extremely important. And typically, if you look at our stakeholders, we work with a lot of consumers. We have got our vendor supplier chain, and we also have a societal impact, which is massive, because even though the number of consumers are, say, 13 million in this case, you can easily multiply this by 5 times if you want to really look at the kind of impact we are going to create in the entire system, especially in India. And why this India emphasis is extremely important is the kind of role India is set to play in the development of the global economy and the contribution towards some of the things which we see looking into the present geopolitics is of extreme importance. And one of the things which we have done, because what we have done is we have, make that statement. I really like the statement going beyond your product and your business. We had set up a startup ecosystem called the Clean Energy International Incubation Center, which is housed in our office in Rohini, and which is run by our partners. Social Alpha is a larger collaboration, and we have set up we have got up a 45 startups portfolio working on various technologies of clean energy. And we feel that some of these technology are going to make it so big that there is a possibility that the very business which we are actually holding today is also going to get disrupted, and possibly we have to look at things in a different way. The statement which I am making here is we may have to essentially move from a regulated business, which largely is the transmission, generation, distribution, to something unregulated, where the consumers becomes more empowered, the supply chain becomes more versatile, more flexible, and the society becomes more inclusive part. They play a more inclusive part than really structuring the way the business is going to happen when it comes to the energy sector. That is what we are setting forth. For that, technology disruption is of utmost importance, and where we feel that startup is going to play an extremely high role for doing that. And we are not only looking at that, we are looking at water neutral by 2030, extremely important for some of the things which we are doing. If I take an example, we have got a 1 gigawatt solar PV manufacturing plant. We are going to have another 4 gigawatt which is going to get manufactured. They are going to consume huge water quantity when you are going to have this manufacturing process. So how do you become water neutral? And how do you really have a zero waste to landfill? And these are all targeted for 2030. We want to do that. And we want to achieve carbon net zero by 2045. And essentially, something which we have realized very quickly is the benchmark in this path which we have set for is very difficult to get across. So it is very important to set a utility benchmark wherein we look at water, waste management, looking at clean energy capacity, looking at how do you really define a consumer-centric, because it has to also call for a substantial amount of consumer behavior. The consumer is going to walk with us. Consumer also has to be very careful in terms of the air conditioning they are going to use. They are going to be very sensitive to the kind of equipment they are going to use. They are going to be very sensitive to the time they are going to use all those things, because that is going to really decide what sort of a energy mix they are going to get, whether it's going to be from solar, whether they're going to get water or from any other source. And another important point, if you look at any large projects, the way we are setting it up, whether it be a hydro project or thermal or even doing clearing a solar farm, the biodiversity of extreme importance. And I feel that is one area which has not got the right kind of attention, and perhaps not because that there is no intention to be very sincere on that, but because of the lack of understanding really how does the impact of biodiversity really change the balance of things. Somebody who digs a hole for just putting up a pole for electricity connection does not realize by digging that hole what is the kind of changes he is going to make, or shift is going to make on the biodiversity. I think this calls for extremely important understanding of how the balance of the ecosystem is going to play, and education which is going to be extremely important to really build this up. Innovation is going to play a key role. something which is going to really make a lot of disruption in this area is going to be the CCUS. The thermal plants, if you discover to find a way to capture all the carbon and utilize all the carbon, this is going to have a sea change on the way we are going to do generate energy. It's going to, because the coal always has a very strong societal impact. People work in mines. They are not necessarily people with very high amount of skills. So it is important to balance that. What we are hoping is we want to impact 80 million lives directly by 2028, in which we want to do training, we want to do generate education, we want to develop self-help groups, because inclusive approach in India is going to be extremely important. We have a microgrid company. We have set up about 200 microgrids in the places where electricity is not there. Create entrepreneurship participation model where community is part of us. We want to set up 10,000 of those. We want to create awareness. We want to champion the area of neurodiversity support across the geography. And we hope that with partnerships and with friends like you, we'll be able to take it forward. Thank you, Ganesh, and thank you everyone for your attention.
Thank you, Ganesh. And I think this is, for me, it's been such an honor and fascinating work to work with the companies really using the KPIs and the innovation index and other tools to really look at how you transform a company. Because sometimes it feels like some companies are just pulling out something and just communicating it, but in a very structural way. And also, I think this is a challenge I would like to put to all companies, to create what you did with Social Alpha, an international incubator. Most incubators are very local to university, but in India you have this in Delhi, really bringing people together to bring global solutions out. And I think that kind of collaboration between large companies and startups is also something that I'm still a bit frustrated that we don't see more around in the world. With that said, the newest friend in our collaboration among solution-oriented companies, SSAB, a steel company. And I'll be honest, many of my friends said, are you even going to work with a steel company? There's no innovation in this field here. I say, no, of course it is. Look around you. Where's the steel in society? It's everywhere. So why shouldn't they be part of the innovation? If anything, they have the problem of being innovative in so many places. So, and that's why I'm really happy to welcome you, Victoria, to share something about your work in SSAB.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me, and also thank you to the previous speakers. So my name is Victoria Karsberg, and I'm working for SSAB, and just very shortly about SSAB. So we are a small steel company, but working all over the world. We have production in Sweden, Finland, and the US, but we exist in more than 50 markets. And we have a production capacity of around 8.8 million tons. And our reason to be is really our high-strength steels, and that's why we make ourselves useful in a global perspective, so to say. But thank you for that bridge also. You said that, imagine a society without steel, and that was really also the point that I was hoping to make, because if you look around us and think about a modern society, I think it's hard to imagine something that's not either made out of steel or made with a machine that is made out of steel. So you really find it everywhere, I would say. And in that sense, I think we've been working as a solution provider all along, and really trying to help our customers to innovate to the needs that have been for this society. But going forward now, I think the needs are gearing more towards sustainability, and also, of course, the decrease of carbon emissions. And in the beginning, we were helping our customers to decrease their CO2 emissions by helping to provide stronger and lighter steel, which means that the cars can run on lesser fuels or be more packed, so to say. But then we realized, as being responsible for 10% of Sweden's CO2 emissions and 7% of Finland's CO2 emissions, and the steel industry as a total stands for around 9% of the world's CO2 emissions, that was no longer possible. So we really wanted to get to the root cause to get rid of these emissions. So Martin Pei here, our Chief Technology Officer at SSAB, took the initiative to find a way to get rid of the root cause. And in 2021, we were able to show that it was actually possible to produce with green hydrogen, removing all the carbon dioxide emissions and only having water as a byproduct. And all along, we've been working in the value chain. So we work very closely with, continuing to innovate together with our customers and with our suppliers and so on. So we see that when doing this, it's not only changing the way that we produce, but it's actually, changing the way that we work in the networks regarding this. And just to give you a very practical example of, the need of electrification of the society and the value chain and the way we need to work together there. So just, if you look at Europe now, of each new megawatt of solar requires around 35 to 40 tons of steel. And if you look at wind power, that's even more. That's around 120 to 180 tons of steel. And if you look at the EU-based project for renewable energy growth, then you have 74 million tons of steel demand coming from Europe. So that really says something, that when we're doing this transformation, we also need to think about the raw material, of course. But I would say it's not only that, because also now we have said that we will transform one Nordic site by 2026 and the two other ones by 2030. So it's really happening now as we speak. And looking at this, we also see that there are other challenges that we could also solve by doing this. Of course, solving our customers' scope 3, but also we see then, when going into this new way of producing, we could also make it much more energy efficient than it has been before, when going from coke and coal to energy. But then also coming to the point that was made here before, how do we take care of our employees then, and also think about the just transformation. So I think this is really also the opportunity for the upskilling and for providing both competitiveness to this value chain, but also to make sure that we secure these green jobs. And I would also like to say that when working in this research and development, it's not only about educating ourselves, but also educating the full value chain. How do we build competence around these new ways of working and living?
Fantastic. And I think that was one of the things that I also brought back to people. You say steel. There are more than 5,300 different kinds of steels. It's the different kind of steel if you have an offshore mill, or if you have or maybe quite similar if you have an oil platform. But we want more of that steel, and some we might not need. So I think that's also really exciting that you talk about these value chains. And I really hope that we, in the future, will have, even you, coming up and talking about how many flourishing lives have we contributed to through this renewable energy, smart buildings, smart public transport. And that leads me to the next speaker, because Alex has been doing fantastic work on trying to see how do we start to measure these avoided emissions. These, not just reducing your emissions within your company, but the ones in society. But one thing that is also interesting is that so far it's been focused a little bit more on people who like to report. But these companies have not really been driven by reporting, so how can avoided emissions also be used for business model development, as finding magnitudes of scale and where markets are? So over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Masamba, Dennis, having us from the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. I really love how you are speaking about this mindset change that is needed, and about the agenda for human needs for 11 billion people. So I think this is exactly what we are in support for, to keep 1.5 degrees alive. Is the sound working? Or is it coming up now?
It's a bit low again.
I hope people online can hear us and in this room.
Okay.
So this expanded innovation agenda to keep 1.5 degrees alive is exactly one of the pieces that we need to see. So the world is turning to businesses for solutions, and they're looking to businesses for transformative solutions. And as also Victoria and the others were just saying, so we need to drive those solutions through value chains, and solutions need to be based on science, they need to be based on data and collaboration. And Dennis, to your question, there needs to be an accounting and accountability for it. And if we are able to demonstrate low carbon solutions and put in the right pieces of accounting, this will then bring businesses the trust and recognition to be a credible partner in the overall sustainability ecosystem. So the World Business Council for Sustainable Development has been working over the past 2 decades on greenhouse gas protocol accounting together with the World Resources Institute. So this is what you have been mentioning, this is reducing carbon. And yes, this is still a huge challenge. So we have very good initiatives on science-based targets where you put up your inventory and reducing your emissions. But we know this is not sufficient. So complementary, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development has been working over the past 2 years also with your great support from Mission Innovation on defining a protocol or a standard or guidance on avoided emissions. And this is what divides the inventory of the past, of the current emissions to intervention accounting, forward-looking. Because we will need this to be able to compare different forward-looking solutions. It is based on scenario, based on alternatives, and therefore if investors, if customers are not getting the right tools in terms of accountability, then it is difficult to understand what has been the impact. So we now look at this piece in time. We have been developed the guidance. It has been, we brought it to the G7, so it was recognized there. We now take the next step. So with WBCSD member companies and all the examples we have seen from Sorenso, from Tata Power, from SSAB. So we are currently creating use case repositories in which we will walk through all the different solutions through the guidance that we've been working on. We started to get, working together with financial institutions. So for example, GFANS is currently running a consultation on expected emission reduction. So also looking into the solutions pieces to find out how can we further standardize those solutions that really contribute to a human needs agenda looking into the future. And this is where we would love to get further input, all the people's support in the room, because we believe that this is the way forward, complementing inventory accounting. Yes, there's no way out of getting science-based targets right, but we know this won't be sufficient. And as I said, the world is turning to business for solutions. So this is what I really appreciate on your initiative, taking a human needs agenda, what is needed, and getting innovation to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you. This is fantastic. And I've been quite provocative because I thought science-based targets played a role and was important, but now it's actually becoming an innovation killer, that many companies think that that is enough to just reduce their emissions. So that's where I think your work with avoided emissions and companies and solution providers is so crucial, that companies realize that the real thing is giving to society and delivering on that. Now, unfortunately, we start a bit late, so I guess that we have a session coming up. So we only have a room for sort of a short round again, but I'd just like to have every one of you having your last message, just a minute, what you think are the next steps and most important thing.
I think if you want to achieve the objective that we are targeting, which is focusing everybody on the core human needs, and at the same time developing this mindset of solution provider, we need to come back to the three core values that the Global Innovation Hub is promoting: caring, sharing, and daring. Caring because if you want innovation to serve the many people and the planet, we need to, when we are innovating, to go back to their core needs and their focus on their well-being. Sharing because we need to share knowledge, we need to share experience, and also we need to have this solution provider mindset. And then daring because we need to set goal and target being with a moonshot mindset. Set the goal and the target not based on what is possible, but based on what is needed. And the gap between what is needed and what is possible will be the main driver of innovation.
Thank you, Masamba. James, as a CFO, what's your 1 minute thinking on the next steps forward here now?
I'm thinking, there's so much things that we can use our companies for instead of just maximizing profit. And this is just in the latest few years, this has opened up so much, right? So So thinking about what can we use our company for, and how can we provide value for the world? Having much more stakeholders than just the shareholders. I think there's so much potential in that.
I don't think there's many CFOs that are still there, but you're leading the pack. John?
I'll say two things. That's a lot, but one is just the whole agenda here. It's really great that it's present. It's great there's an innovation hub. It needs to go much more mainstream than, and you know, if you have ideas what I can do, what we can do, but just generally there's just something about getting this perspective into even the bigger stages. So just in itself, because it's just a mindset. The other one is more nerdy, nitty-gritty, but it's actually important. In the beginning, we talked a lot about there's the reduction, and then there's this agenda, and they're separate, they're both important. We keep them separate, which is true, but it's not entirely true. The science-based target came up. When we look at how some of these frameworks are starting to put guidelines in on also biological carbon, they get it completely wrong, because they treat it like it was fossil carbon. So you want to reduce it. But that's not what you want to do with biological carbon. Biological carbon is something that flows around. So you want to manage the flow to optimize services for 11 billion people. That's a complete, even on the reduction agenda, the mindset needs to go in there, because if you treat biological carbon as fossil carbon, you completely screw up the possibility to use renewable materials to design this. So I think we can keep them separate to some extent, but we actually have to make sure that the first doesn't block the possibility of this agenda, and actually the frameworks that are there now, they're just doing exactly that.
Yeah, that's a very interesting and quite controversial point also, that all carbon are not equal, and that's something that we need hopefully to learn more about. And I think the discussion with offsetting has highlighted that challenge with storing things a little bit in forest and hope that it's there, compared to actually emitting something into the atmosphere, and a bio-based economy in that equation. Ganesh, your guidance.
Yeah. Thanks. You know, I think one of the key things where, if you look at energy as a product, market, solution, service, you know, here customer is not going to leave, because customer is going to electricity or energy has never change the shape or size. It is just that somebody wants to have it 24/7 in the whatever cost effective manner. So, but what is going to be important is, while the need of the customer is, they will not lead it, but a lot of latent things can happen. You know, we could really get them part of our energy value chain in a very subtle and a very strong manner. We can empower them and get into that. And if you typically look at the transition which is going to happen, earlier it was pretty straightforward. You are generating through a thermal power, you are generating through a nuclear, hydro. I mean, largely you are going to have gas, where you are going to run it 24/7, and you just used to consume. Now, when the clean energy portfolio is going to come in a strong way, what's going to change is, you're going to have a combination of, say, biomethane, you're going to a combination of solar, wind, maybe different types of energy getting generated in such a way, maybe sustainable fuels on one side, and maybe some element of artificial intelligence coming to really see that how do you really balance the supply and demand. So what is going to happen is, it is not going to be consistent, it is going to be intermittent. So therefore, it is important to integrate multiple facets, sources of energy, users of energy, balancing of energy, a much more intelligent way than what is going to be. So that is going to be the one piece of the puzzle, and which we are going to solve and which we are going to integrate to develop that sustainable value chain when it comes to energy. The second part, which is going to be very important, is when we are going to empower the consumer, when we're going to have customer participation coming in, is the behavioral change. We have to also very clearly understand that it's important that industry consumption behave differently, the commercial consumptions behave differently, and the consumer who are using for the personal use are going to behave differently. I think combination of innovation, which is going to be extremely important to really look at disruptive technology and combining and integrating multiple elements of this energy value chain together, and coming out with some of the behavioral innovations at the consumer side is going to be the key to make sure that the society becomes clean and very safe for the future. Thank you.
I think that's really interesting. I think this comprehensive perspective is when you look at flourishing lives, you need to look at that in a comprehensive way, because you can't cut down all the forest and then ask people to walk out and enjoy nature with fossil free. If you look at how people live, you need to think about pollution, climate, biodiversity, everything. And I think that's one of the challenges when companies have been asked just to comply and say chemical compliance and climate compliance, but then lose the actual purpose in society. So I think this comprehensive perspective, I think, is really interesting. Victoria, your thoughts on the next steps, 2024 and onwards?
No, but talking about the comprehensive perspectives, then I think what is important to understand, to see now, is that perhaps things starts out by being sustainable projects, but what is happening right now is that it becomes more and more market driven, and we really see that the market is there and it helps now to drive the change. And then I think, coming from the steel industry, being a solution provider, we're going from one system that we asked for before, but now we're asking for another system. And then it's really up to us to set the right standards for this kind of solutions, and also to continue to innovate together. How do we build sustainable cities? How do we build sustainable infrastructure? What kind of society is it actually that we want to use steel for?
I think that's
how
so
we build flourishing lives.
What kind of business models? Because most companies need to move away from selling per ton or square meters to really move towards the services. And I think the steel industry will be one of the most exciting ways for me forward, because you're everywhere. And how will that be possible to sort of measure, at least get some indication? Alex, your thoughts? You've been having on a success thing now with G7, your own launch, etc. So avoid emissions is starting. So think about John. How can we make this mainstream? How do we get this to the next step?
So if we put the agenda for human needs into the center, I believe we further need to look on the mindset of all of us, how we are working, how we are consuming, and I think that was very well put out. We need to further look on the incentives to really drive low carbon innovations. So WBCSD agenda going into 2024, and we are going to launch a framework here over the coming days, is on look what is the performance and accountability system for climate related solutions that really works together. So work companies, be it ones from the more traditional ones, more innovators, where all of them really feel they are the right incentives that are linked up with financial market institutions' incentives, as well as then putting out products and solutions that we need for humans to drive, coming up to 11 billion. So we are full in support, and yes, looking forward to bring our guidance to a more proper standard. So please let us find all the great examples, putting them into use cases, and then take it forward to further drive.
Fantastic ending. So we're a few minutes late, but I think it was worth it. So big applause for all the speakers. They've done a fantastic work. See you towards the future of 11 billion people.